Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melissa Galasso, and today we're going to talk about the FAF review of the Private Company Council. So many of you know we've been following the PCC for a number of years. They've been around for some time, over a decade. They were created in 2012. And in the last 12 years, they've had a lot of influence at the FASB. And the question is, are they meeting their objectives? So the FASB was first asked by the Blue Ribbon Council to create a separate standard setting body for private company GAAP, similar to how IFRS has IFRS for SMEs. Back in the early 2000s, they looked at creating a separate standard setting body. Ultimately, that is not what the FAF decided to do. The Financial Accounting Foundation decided to create an advisory committee instead, and the Private Company Council was created. And so there was a lot of drama about this. If you remember back to 2012, this is around the same time that the AICPA releases their FRF for SMEs. There was a lot of turmoil over what was going on there. But the PCC came into being in December, and they came into being in 2012. They had their first meeting at the end of December of 2012. And they started to make a lot of progress. In 2013, they put out several exposure drafts. In 2014, in January, they issued two ASUs, ASU 2014-02 and ASU 2014-03, that provide immediate relief for private companies. So they look for exceptions to GAAP. They continue down this, providing more relief in 2014, I think it was 07, and then 2014, 18. And then they kind of stopped for a little while. Some of what they started became FASB agenda items. Some of what they were working on were sort of adjusted. And so this is not the first time the FAF has taken a look at them. So the FAF, periodically reviews all of their committees and their advisory groups. And they looked at the role of the PCC going forward. And so the PCC started to switch its focus from looking for exceptions and alternatives to GAAP for private companies to being part of the standard setting agenda. And so they started to meet frequently with the FASB to provide feedback on behalf of private companies on things like leases and CECL and other standards that have come out since then. And they're sort of a sounding board for how will this influence and how will this impact private companies? What are the trends that private companies are seeing? How are different things impacting them? So the PCC has been around now for a little bit of time. And so the FAF, the Financial Accounting Foundation, decided to take a look and do a review. So on February 29th of this year, they announced that they were going to review the Private Company Council to see, is it still meeting the needs of private company users? And so, or private company stakeholders. And so as they look at the operating model, how frequently they meet, who they have on there, trying to figure out, are we getting the job done? Right. And I think this is important. I served on the Not-for-Profit Advisory Committee for 3 years. We, during that time, also had a review of our committee, right? They interviewed us, they interviewed board members to try to make sure that the committee is getting the work done. And so I think it's important that the FAF get this sort of feedback to make sure that these committees are doing the work that they're supposed to do. And the PCC has two main goals in this area. They serve as the primary advisory body on the treatment for companies that are private companies for items on the active agenda. So anything that the FASB is currently working on writing an ASU for, they are going to be focused on that topic. Now, sometimes something starts as a PCC item, like I'm trying to think of the one that was profits interest. That started on the PCC, and then it came over to the FASB's agenda. We've seen that a few times. Variable interest entities is another one. Started as a PCC alternative, came over to the full FASB agenda for the board to work on. And so sometimes it's just creating these ideas. So they're looking at the current agenda of the FASB. But in addition, they still have the ability to use the private company decision-making framework to provide alternatives to GAAP. And those alternatives can be disclosures, but they can also be recognition and measurement, right? So amortizing goodwill for private companies, right? That was a PCC alternative. Public companies can't do that. And so the PCC obviously is responsible for a lot of the differences that private company alternatives create. Now, the questions that they're asking for: has the PCC been effective as the primary advisory body to the FASB on private company items? Are they bringing forward the issues for private companies? Are they communicating effectively on behalf of private companies? Are they talking about the issues that private companies face that the FASB needs to hear? In addition, has the PCC been successful in considering the needs of private company stakeholders when making recommendations to the FASBs on alternatives within GAAP? So again, not only on the current technical agenda, but are they identifying things? And I have some dear friends who are currently serving on the PCC, and friends I've known previously served on the PCC, and I know that they really do mean well. They have really been very focused. And so I've been, a lot of them came from the Technical Issues Committee, which I served on the AICPA for a number of years. And they are passionate about private companies. And so the question is, okay, passion's one thing, but are they successful in getting the job done, in communicating what needs to be done for private companies? And then, are there any organizational or procedural improvements that may need to be made as part of the PCC? So is the meeting frequency correct? Is the process for providing feedback to the FASB appropriate? Is the liaison appropriate? Currently, Sue Casper is the liaison from the board to the committee, and they try to find someone who has private company background that's typically been pretty successful there. Sue's been, previous to this, she worked as on the staff for the FASB and has private company experience in her previous auditor life as well. And so they're just looking for feedback. I think that's something that, I know this is not a great time of year. I know that people are knee deep in either closing their books or getting their books audited or working on their tax return. Trust me, I'm in the same boat. We've closed our books, but now we're trying to get our taxes done and working with our CPA to do so. So I totally get that if you're a CPA, you're either helping close your own books or you're providing services to those with those closed books. And there's a lot going on right now. So and timing was a little bit unfortunate in my opinion, but I do think it is intentional. Now, these are not the only questions. There's actually many more questions that are on there for you to provide feedback. So if you are very passionate about private company reporting and you think that there are changes that can be made either to how the PCC operates, right? They're looking for procedural and operational changes, or feedback on how successful they've been. So I get a lot of feedback questions like, why did the PCC not get specialty disclosures in leases? Why are they the same as public companies, right? So if those are the types of things that you want to communicate, the FASB is, or the FAF, the Financial Accounting Foundation, which is the parent organization, basically the governance to both the FASB and the GASB, they are looking for your feedback. And so I get a lot of people when I'm teaching FASB updates and small business accounting and auditing updates who give me feedback, but it'd be really helpful if you gave that feedback to the Financial Accounting Foundation. So there are a few different ways that you can do that. The first one is the probably easiest one, which is email your comments. So it would just be pccreview@f-a-f.org, Financial Accounting Foundation. And you can just send them your thoughts to the questions via email. You don't have to answer every question. That is one way to do it. They are not going to turn away hard copies. So if you still like to put your comments in the mail, you are more than welcome to do that as well. So it's a little bit different than a standard setting where you kind of go in and fill out the information or upload it on their website. This is going to be primarily email or, again, hard copies, and actual USPS mail is welcome. The due date, though, is May 31st. So I know that March, April, and May can be trying periods for those of you who are serving clients or who, again, are the client who's getting the work done and making those audit adjustments and talking to the auditor, or just doing your own taxes, right? But this is a really important topic. So I want to encourage you to reach out to the FAF and share your thoughts. They really do want to hear it. If you have ideas on things maybe the FASB hasn't heard, maybe some private company alternatives that you think are needed, if you think there's something that we can do to provide relief for private companies, this is really your opportunity to share your thoughts. So I would encourage you to take a look at this and to provide that feedback to the FAF. They would greatly appreciate it. But with that, that's a wrap on today's blog. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.